Alp Mehmet is chairman of Migration Watch. Good morning to you.
Good morning, ma'am.
I mean, these numbers are extraordinary, aren't they? 828 was the last record. It seems the people traffickers are really on a roll right now.
They certainly are. The last couple of times I've spoken to you, Julia, I know I've said that unless we start returning those who arrive, it's going to go up and up. And that's exactly what's happening. It's easy money. Why wouldn't they do it? The moment they get onto a rickety dinghy, onto the high seas, they're rescued by us, they're brought to our shores, and they never go back. I'm
Yeah.
afraid so long as that continues, it will all go up and up.
Now, I've already seen messages on social media this morning saying, "Why are we rescuing them? Why is this happening?" It does seem bizarre that we're able to spot them in the water, but the French Navy isn't, and the French Navy could rescue them. And again, people, very small boats being, massively overloaded are at risk. I'm sorry. I really have got no truck for the people who say, "Oh, well, just leave them to drown. That'll send a message." I'm sorry, these are human beings. I don't want them to be arriving in our country illegally, but I also don't want them to die. Call me old-fashioned. I actually, do actually have some values left. But the fundamental thing is, if our navy can spot them, how come the French Navy can't?
Well, not only our Navy, but the RNLI as well. There is a French equivalent. I think there's Société Nationale de Sauvetage en Mer, if I remember
Very
rightly.
impressive, Alp.
SNMS.
I felt like I was there. You may as well have just put a string of onions around your neck then.
But I have done that before as well. No, the fact is that that's exactly the point. If we're able to pick them up, why don't the French actually become a little more aware sooner than they appear to, rather than tell us that they're in our waters? Perhaps they should be going out and taking them back. But that, I'm afraid, is a political issue. The French, I see that Priti Patel now is saying that unless they reduce the numbers coming over by 75%, that she's going to withhold money. My goodness, that'll do the trick.
Yes, yes,
Setting targets for the French. We're not very good at keeping to our own targets. Remember, tens of thousands.
Yeah, a very, very fair point. And it's believed that this has been, as a result, this extra big numbers been sort of two things. One is we've got suddenly much nicer weather, as we're all witnessing with, in fact, it's a bit too nice. I mean, I'd like to have the weather spread out a little bit more in terms of the temperature, but we had 2 weeks where barely any boats came across because the weather was so rough. So basically the demand is sitting there waiting. And as soon as the weather was good, we're seeing far more numbers. So again, we do see these, these peaks and troughs in the numbers, but also there are lots more checks. I know people who've been going across the channel, so many more checks been going on in terms of lorries and cars crossing over the channel that actually that's become a more difficult route. So it may well be that some of those people are simply being displaced. So we don't necessarily have that many more people arriving in the country. It's just they're coming on boats instead of in the back of lorries. But either way, these numbers are astonishing and really very, very scary. We don't know who these people are. Even after they arrive, we often don't know who they are because it's rather convenient for people not to have documentation, claim they're from wherever I mean, I'd be claiming I was from Syria, Afghanistan, wherever I was from. That would be the best way of staying in the country. But we are in a situation where we are unable to protect our borders right now.
That's actually the most serious point about it all. The fact that we appear to be incapable of protecting our borders. I mean, there are still those who arrived yesterday. I gather that there's any number still running loose. Who are they? Where have they come from? What are their intentions? Do they just want to come here and go into the black economy and work? Or do they have more motives, more ulterior, sinister motives in mind? At the moment, we don't know, and I'm afraid it's completely out of control.
Yeah.
The government is flailing around. I'm afraid they've got to do better.
I mean, the vast majority of these people would just simply be people seeking a better life, and we can all understand that. The point is exactly, well, how many people are we going to accept on this basis? Your solution is you arrive here on that basis, you just simply get shipped back, but the French aren't going to take them.
Well, the French, if they were honorable if they meant what they said, that they want to put an end to it. This is the only way of putting an end
But
to it.
our human
The other
rights
thing
legislation wouldn't allow that to happen.
well, it would actually, going back to a safe country, a country from where they're perfectly capable of applying for asylum. Very often they've already applied for asylum in these countries and have been denied it. So I think that's a bit of a red herring to suggest that our human rights legislation doesn't allow us to do it. It does, and we should.